Hello guys, by the end of this video, or this tutorial, you should be able to make such a basic USSD that is going to have a very basic user flow. Someone clicks on that USSD and then they can maybe select account. And then once they select account, they can also select pay contribution. And once they select the amount they want to contribute, they can just enter the amount. And once they enter the amount and send, in the background, the logic is going to send the M-Pesa SDK push, and I have received the M-Pesa SDK push for 200. So this is all the video is going to be about. See you in a minute. Now let's talk about the architecture or designing the entire architecture and why even USSD are important. So USSDs are important because of a few reasons, but the main one is being able to interact with an application without necessarily needing the internet. And until recently, previously interacting with internet was a little bit frustrating because there are places in the world that you can't access internet, but you can probably access network. Yeah. So the first reason why USSD are not important is because internet is also pretty much expensive. Uh, yeah. So the reason most people interact with USSD because they want to interact with an application without necessarily having to rely on the internet. For example, you can just dial your bank USSD code, interact with, send money, so forth and so forth, without necessarily needing the internet. The other reason is because it works almost on any device that has a SIM card. So you don't have to worry about whether it's going to work on your device or not. Yeah. Um, yeah. So that is another reason. And the flow is super easy. You don't have to worry about the user flow and so forth and so forth. Of course, there are reasons against using SSD codes. For example, anywhere you are, because most USSD interactions are in plain text, and you're going to see that in a minute. It's not advisable to build something that is going to require you to pass very secretive information. For example, it's not until recently it was not advisable for Safaricom to have us interact with the USSD app, and we have to enter our own pins. Because if, for example, if there was, I don't know, a man in the middle, in the back end there, where they host the USSD application, and someone logs the phone number and the pin, they can see them in plain text because most of the information that is being passed via the USSD is passed in print text. Yeah. So there are also some reasons against using SSDs and so forth and so forth, especially for very secretive information. It's not advisable. So let's talk about how USSD work. So it's you here. This is the user. And then we have the telco here. And then we have the USSD app. So it's as basic as that. A user dials, the telecom gets a few API or gets the API payload, and then it sends that payload to you. Now, here is a little bit abstraction that comes in. Most telcos do not want to interact or do not want to sell the USSD codes directly to consumers. So what they do, they sell codes or they assign codes to aggregators. No, now aggregators come in here. And the aggregators are, for example, African Stocking, Cellcom. There is also Text SMS. There are very many, depending on the country. These are just a few that are in Africa and probably Kenya. Yeah. So this is the flow. So now the flow changes to the user, telco, and then the USSD aggregator and now to your application. So you no longer now receive the response or the API payload from the telco. You now receive it from the USSD. So the process is as simple as that. Now let's talk about setting up your application via the telco. So the process is as straightforward as any can be. Yeah. So what most telco are going to ask from you is a callback URL. Again, depending on the aggregator that you're going to set up with, you're going to they are going to tell you whether it's a post or a get. Yeah. Now, the callback URL is where they are going to be sending the API payload on each dial. Every time a user dials, they're going to send an API payload to that callback URL. So the user now that we have aggregator, and now you have your USSD at the end here, your USSD app. I want you to understand this is the app, not the code. So this is the thing. So if, for example, I talk to Africa's Talking, what they are going to ask from me is a callback URL. The callback URL is where they are going to be sending the API payload every time a user sends a request. And the same is going to happen to Celcom Africa, which I've worked with. The API I have worked with it. Celcom Africa's Talking I have also worked with the API. So it's pretty much that straightforward. Now, what is this API payload going to contain? What the API payload is going to contain is pretty much straightforward, but it's the phone number, of the person who dialed. They are going to also send you the session ID. The session ID is the session of the actual user. Yeah. Every time you dial a USSD via, for example, Safaricom or Airtel, they give you a session ID. That session ID is what you're going to receive. It may not necessarily be what the telco or the telco aggregator gave you, but they may mask it at the aggregator level, but you're going to receive a unique identifier for that specific session. And the other thing that you're also going to receive is the actual input or text that the user is entering on every step of your USSD. For example, if they dial *254, they are going to receive the first node. And then if they enter 1, you're going to receive that one. If then, after 1, they are told to enter their mobile number, you're going to receive asterisk, and then their mobile number, for example, 0740 944 288. And then if the next step is, for example, entering their ID number, you're going to receive asterisk 1 2 3 4 5, the ID number. Yeah. Now, this is where it varies a little bit. Depending on the aggregator that you're using, there may be a few other elements that are going, or other variables that are going to be sent in the payload. One of them is the network code. For example, for Celcom Africa, they usually send the network code. Probably because they have built their API to work around Africa, and in Africa there are different networks. For example, they have for Safaricom, they have for Airtel, they have so forth and so forth. These for example, for Safaricom is 999,999. I think if I'm not wrong, 4 nines also. And then in some cases, they're also going to send you the service code. The service code, for example, again for African Stocking, is the actual USSD that you bought from them. For example, if you bought *254 for Hasra Fund, that is what you're going to receive. So this is how the interaction is going to be. If you dial, the Safaricom is going to make the payload, including your phone number, because they know it. They are going to give you a session ID, and they are also going to track the inputs that you enter. They are going to send that payload to the aggregator. The aggregator are probably going to overwrite or rewrite the session ID, but most of the other info is always going to be the same. The phone number and the input that you enter. Now, the input that you enter is now going to be forwarded by the aggregator together with what they have modified depending on them. For example, the session ID is now going to be sent to your application. And once it's sent to your application, it's now upon you to handle it however you want. So that is the entire flow. Now, I want to probably walk you around the different APIs. I'm going to walk you through what African Stocking offers and what Celcom Africa offers. I'm not going to go much into detail because I want us to talk about the designing our basic USSD so that it's not very complex. But the assumption here is that you don't have any knowledge about USSDs. So if you have, you're probably going to skip some of this content. So for Celcom Africa, what they send you the session ID in that format, and it's going to be a string. They also send you the phone number in camel case again, and this is also going to be a string. They also send you the network code. Again, I may have written this in the wrong way, but this is also going to be as a string. And they also send you the service code, which I said now is your USSD. The service code is the USSD that you bought from them. Again, it's going to be a string. And they also send you the text as a string. And they also send you the, what have I forgotten? I think that's about it. I think 5 things, yeah. So, yeah, you're probably going to see this in development, but this is the structure that they sent you. The payload that they are going to send you, it's always going to have these different variables. Let's quickly go through what Celcom Africa offers. And if you know them, you should probably talk to them so that they can start sponsoring me these so that I can talk more about them, because I'm also going to talk about SMSs. I'm also going to talk about different APIs that we have or that they have. Again, you can also talk to Celcom. Whoever comes faster, I'm willing to take a deal. So the next thing, the Celcom API payload. Payload. It's going to have the session ID. It's also going to have the phone number, but for their case, they name it as MSIDN. I think it's the member subscriber identifier or something of the sort. And then they also send you the input. For Celcom Africa, the last time I interacted with them, this is what they were sending. Now the input is where you have, for example, if you bought 254, the input is always going to start from there. If a user enters a specific value, you're going to receive that value appended depending on what the user. For example, if the user dials that, and then they enter 1, and then they enter 2, those are the steps that you're going to get via the input. So that is the structure of the payloads, how you're going to receive from them. So it varies, but mostly you must have, or you must receive, these 3. In this particular example, we're going to be mainly talking about African stocking. And the reason is simple. It's because they have a web simulator. Sort of like showing you how they interact, or how the end user is going to be interacting with your USSD app. So we are not using African stocking for any other reason. And Yeah, we are not using them for any other reason. And I'm actually, if you would want me to make a web simulator that you can probably interact with, please do let me know in the comments so that I can make one for you that has probably different routes, get posts, and so on and so on. So do let me know if it's something that you would want me to explore, and I can host it for free out there so that you can also interact with the entire session. So we are only using African stocking because of the web simulator, but basically the entire flow works the same way. So our USSD application is going to do very minor things. Someone dials, so the user dials. Once they go through the telco and then plus aggregator, they run to our USSD app. So our USSD app is just going to do a few things. So it's first of all going to ask the member. You're not going to ask for their phone number because you already have that. So you're just going to ask them whether they want to pay something, and then you're going to send that to our payment service. And in this case, we are going to be using M-Pesa. So it's going to be that simple. The reason why I'm doing this is just to show you it's going to be very basic. Maybe later on, we are going to talk about the advanced level part of it. So a user dials, they just select whether they want to pay contribution, and then we pass that information to our M-Pesa payment service, and then the M-Pesa payment service is going to send the SDK push. So this is going to be the entire flow. So see you in a minute. Now, by the time you are downloading the prerequisite documents, you're going to receive them as this, as what we have here. Now, everything is configured. Just the basic. We have Express, we have .env, and then you're loading the environment variables. Do create your .env, and I'm going to tell you what you're going to load it with it in a minute. But yeah, it's configured to load, and then you're starting the app, and then we are putting port 3000, and then we are sort of URL encoding the variables so that we can see them. We can actually see them all extended. And then we have a post route that is defined here for USSD. And then you're just listening on the port and logging it. So basically, this is the standard of what we already have. Now, the prerequisites of interacting with this tutorial, I should have mentioned, is first of all, you go to African Stocking and then you create an account. It's free to create an account, and then we can start interacting with it because we're going to be using the API and the web simulator. The other prerequisite is an Intasend account. You're going to be using Intasend for the M-Pesa SDK push. That is for a while now until I acquire my own till, and I'm going to prepare a course on that as well over time through documenting the entire process. I'm probably going to have it under a paywall. So do mind with me, as you know, if you're willing to buy that course, you can buy it at a later date. But for now, for the SDK M-Pesa SDK push, you're going to be initiating them via Intasend. You're not going to be interacting with the Raja directory, but the process is pretty much the same. And if you would want to see the entire process of interacting with the Raja, please go to one of my videos, not the recent one. And I have prepared a video on initiating SDK push on the Raja. Do check that video. The process is still going to change a little bit, but you do check it out. So those are the two prerequisites that you should have when starting interacting with this tutorial. If you don't have them, for example, for Intasend, you can use any other M-Pesa aggregator or service provider that you have. For example, if you have Paystack, you can do that with them. If you have any other provider, you can use that as well. So let's start the development process. You can go to documentation, and from documentation, you're going to see what they are actually going to send to you. So if you go to USSD, you can see the simple process that I was explaining there. So you can see that once you register your URL callback, the request we receive belonging to your service code, they are going to be sent via HTTP post. So you should first of all ensure that the route that your callback is going to have is the post. And then the other thing they're saying is that this request will be sent with the content type of application, XW form, URL encoded. Yeah. And that is the reason why we are using the middleware express.url encoded to get the actual print test. Yeah. So that we can see the actual detail that the payload involves. And they are also saying that all you have to do at this point is respond with a string that you'd like us to send back a text.print. Yeah. So you should reply with a plain text. And they also saying that you should ensure that your application responds within at least 10 seconds, unless otherwise they are going to show you the user a timeout. So let's go to handling session. So there's a code snippet here, and what I want you to do is just copy this particular node. So we are just going to copy it, and no, we're not going to copy it entirely. What we're going to do, we're just going to copy from here, where you have the session starting to here, and then you can just copy it. So that is what we're going to start by copying here. The reason we are just copying it is just ensuring that I don't write it from from scratch. But let me explain to you what this code is particularly doing. It's receiving a request body, the request body of what the payload contains, and then I don't want to say distributing, but sort of distributing it within the different constants. And then it has an if-else statement, or a chain of if-else statements. So if it's the first node, the user is going to see this. Notice the con. The con is used to, actually they have even said it here. It is used for the first statement. Yeah. You can see that they also have the same here. So if the user here, the first thing they are going to see for the first node, because the first node you don't enter anything, they're going to see this. And then for the second node, if they enter one, they are going to see this. Yeah. Where they can just select the account. And if they select the account, so this is one. If they select the account, skip these two. These two belongs to this phone. So they are going to come here. 1. They're just going to receive an account with the account number being the account number being pre-populated from what is defined as a static account here, and then the phone number section, my phone number, they just pre-populate the phone number. So this is what we are going to be interacting with, all pre-modifying, so that it can do what we want. And you can see here they are setting the response to be sent as plain text, which is what the API previously mentioned. So what we're going to be removing, or sort of changing, you're not going to be changing this, but you can probably first of all log it out. For example, you're just going to console log it, request.body, so that we can see it. Yeah. So before we now start running it, another thing I want to ensure that you know is for you to expose this particular content or this particular application. You have to tunnel it. Yeah. And in this particular tutorial, I'm not tunneling it via Grok. What I'm doing is I'm tunneling it via Cloudflare. If you want to install this particular tunnel in your application, just go to Cloudflare. Just search for Cloudflare and you're going to see it. Yeah. If you download this particular client, you can use it in your local machine. The setup is pretty much easy. Just download it, and then you can continue using the tunnel within your machine. Or you can even ask AI how to set up this particular tunnel. But it's pretty much easy. You just download it. Once you download it, let me show you. I hope the video is not going to get too much long. So once you download it, you can see the binary one here. You can just download this one. Once you download it, those are Linux. You can see the executable here. You can download this one. Once you download it, you move it to your application. You can see what you have there. You can even actually install it. There's no need to even just move it. You can install it on your machine, and then once you install it, if it doesn't work, you can move it to your application dot what. You can move it to your applications program files. Where do I have it? This particular folder. You can move it here and then add this particular folder to your environment variables. So what you're going to do once you download it, just run it. There's no big difference if I do it right now. You can see it's not doing anything. So what you need to do is just copy this. You can, for example, rename it, but you do copy it. Do rename it to, for example, Cloudflare, and then copy it. Once you copy it, move it to your program applications. You can even create a folder for it, like I have done here, and then paste it there. Yeah. Once you paste it there, go to your environment variables and edit them. Once you go there, once you do that, go to your environment variables, and you can see that I have added it here. Yeah. So once you add it there, it's going to be available in your system variables. Now, every time you run Cloudflare, it's going to learn that application with what you want to tunnel. Yeah. Otherwise, you can still use Grok if you are comfortable with Grok. So once you have it, this is the command to tunnel it. Cloudflare tunnel -- URL, and what we want to tunnel is our localhost 300. Once you run it, you are going to receive a tunnel that is going to be dedicated to your particular tunnel. So this is our domain. So everything that is running on port 3000 is going to be tunneled here. So coming back to our application, all we need to do is open the terminal, and run, ensure that you're in the right URL. So, and we're just going to run nodemon, and then I'm using nodemon for this particular app, and then just run server.js, and it's going to be running at that particular port. If you want to, now, what I need you now to do after you've tunneled that, you're going to add this particular callback. Remember what I said, that the USSD payload, this particular payload, is going to be sent to our particular callback. Yeah. So what you want to do is come back to your tunneled URL. I like the crowd forward one because it's you set it for forever, so you don't need to worry about anything else. Come back to our African stocking account and then go to service codes. You can see that I have a few service codes here. So all I need to do is just edit them. But if you don't have one, all you need to do is just create one, and then maybe I'm just going to maybe guess a channel that I think is available. That is too big because I want them to suggest for me. And then the callback URL is now going to be what I tunneled stroke the USSD, the post route that I want to be handling. And then I'm just going to try it. You can see that I have a maximum of 2 channels. But for your case, if you don't have a channel, you're not going to receive any. And then you're going an error. And then you're going to see this particular suggestion. Just copy one of the channels and paste it there. And then once you do that, click on create channel. I'm not going to do that because I already have a few channels. So what I'm going to do, I'm just going to come to my already existing channels, and then I'm going to edit the callback. And then once I do that, I'm going to save. Once I've saved, once you've seen that your callback URL is already saved, maybe I should explain the difference between the callback and the events. The callback URL is where they post the payload for the users to interact with your application. The events URL is where they send the eventual journey of the customer. You can see here via notification that they've mentioned something of the sort. Let me see. You can see that the USSD API sends a notification at the end of the USSD section. To receive this notification, you need to set up another callback URL for event notification on the USSD code listed. Yeah. So once you send that events URL here, every time a USSD session completes, they are going to send a notification with all these details. It's very important for logging and tracking the user journey so that you can see at which point you have timeouts. But maybe that is an advanced um, sort of tracking. Yeah, but they do. This is very important, and you even receive the error that the user received. Yeah, so that it's important for you. Why did this session fail? You can know the reason. So once you've set up your channel, click on this web simulator. Click on it. It's going to open this phone like simulator. So all you need to do here is just select or maybe enter your phone number. I already have mine there. So you just click on connect, and then it's going to open this kind of a phone simulator. This is what I was saying. If you guys would want me to make a similar one, do let me know. So what you need to do here is click on it, and then you can dial your channel. I've already lost mine. So let me go back. Let me go back. Let me go back. Let me go back to my account and copy this particular channel. I'm going to copy it and open the web simulator there. And then from the web simulator, can repeat again, selecting my phone. You can enter any phone or the specific phone that you want to test with. For example, for this section, because you're going to be interacting with the M-Pesa SDK push. So that's about it. You can see now we've dialed. Let's come back to our application and see if we have logged the requests. Oh, we don't have the request yet. request.body. So because that is the first node, we are probably not going to have anything, but let me try entering something, but we should have. That's not the whole point. Yeah. So there might be another reason why we are not receiving a log. You can see that we are receiving it on the other section. So I shouldn't probably have learned this because it's a duplication. So you can see that the first time the user did dial the USSD, this is what we received. We received the text is null, the network ID, this is for Safaricom because that is a Safaricom line, and then the phone number, and so forth and so forth. So let's now try change it to what we want. Now, the only thing that we're going to change is we want the member to pay after they have accessed their account, and then they're going to move to their account. The next thing that we should probably change here or add here is pay. You're going to ask them, number 2, pay contribution. So the first one, if they choose number 2, they're going to get the phone number, but that's not what we want. And then this one, they're going to receive the phone number. So we're just going to add an else if. Else if they first select 1, don't forget to text.text. Is equals to, this is going to be a string. If they select 1, and then inside there they select 2, now if they click on pay contribution, what we want to respond with, so response is what we send to them. You're going to use backticks. You're going to ask them how much would you like to pay? And then you're going to leave them to enter the amount that they want to pay. And then after that, else if they so in this particular section, they're going to enter the amount. Yeah, they are probably good. So we don't know for sure how much they are going to enter. That is the point that I want you to capture from here. We are not going to know. Maybe you can just tell them, please enter the amount instead of how much would you like to pay, because it seems wrong. Long, not wrong, but wrong. So here for sure, we don't know the amount they want to pay. For example, we can't just do this. We can't just do, I don't know, 1 star 2 star 500, because we don't know for sure how much they want to pay. So if what we're going to do, it's a very basic thing. So we're just going to check whether the node that we are checking for starts with this particular details. So what we're going to do, you're going to do if text dot starts with, if what they entered starts with this, if what they entered starts with this, there's an error there. If what they entered starts with this, you're going to do something. What we're going to do, we're going to assume what is beyond that is the amount. So what we are going to do is we are going to assume what is beyond that is the amount. So we are going to first of all text.split. We are going to split what they have there, and then we're going to split based on the asterisk. And then what we get from the split, for example, for this one, we're going to get 1, 2, and then a random number, for example, 500, what they entered. And then what we're going to specifically, what we are interested in, remove this dot there, is the index 2. So this is going to be 1. So split is going to return an array. If we split, for example, let's assume that they entered 500. If we split this using the asterisk, we are going to get an array of three entries. So we are looking for number index 2. Yeah. So this is going to be 0, 1, 2. So we're looking for that index. And then what we are going to now assume, we're going to assume that this is the const amount. Yeah. So that is the amount now. Once we've gotten that amount, all we need to do now is to sort of maybe respond to them. We're going to respond. So our response is going to now, again, you use backticks, and then you will receive, you will receive an STK push all prompt off, and then we're going to concatenate the amount here. So that is the response that they are going to receive at the end. So we're just going to first of all try that before we even make the prompt. So just save it. And then we can come back to our simulator. Let's assume, let's cancel it and then start a new session. So you're going to go to my account, pay contribution, and then you're going to enter 200. Have I forgotten something? I'm thinking I've forgotten. Yeah, I've forgotten 500 here. It's not supposed to be there. Yeah, so you enter 200 and then send. Click on send. You can see that there is an issue. Let's try it afresh. So you're going to run it again. 1, and then this is going to be 2, and then we're going to enter 200. Again, there's an issue. So there must be an issue with something that you are doing. So you have to come to the web application and check where is the error. You have to come back and check where is the error. So starts with is going to return true, and then after it returns true, what we're going to do is you're going to text.sprint. So maybe I should just take you to the Africans Talking. If you go to your channels, you can come back to sessions. If you come to sessions, you can see some have failed. You can see, for example, you have this one at 322 has failed. So what you can do is you can come back there and come to details and see what you can see that we got a bad gateway. So this one tells you that there is an issue with our tunnel. So maybe you can just come back to our tunnel and you can see that there is a problem. So all you need to do now is to restart the tunnel. This is one of the issues with the Crown Free. At times it times out. So you're going to start a new tunnel, copy it, and then replace it like we did initially. If you are using Grok, you're probably not going to face this. That is another great thing about Grok. You're probably not going to. So I'm going to come back to service codes, and then I'm going to edit the callback here, and then I'm going to change this. And then after it's done, I'm going to save it. Now I'm going to start the web simulator afresh, because one thing I've noticed, African stocking have a cache issue. So if you restart the web simulator again immediately without like reloading it afresh, you're still going to get as if you're interacting with the old callback URL. I don't know whether it's a propagation issue or something. I don't know. So I'm going to dial this afresh, and I hope it's not going to have that cache issue. So if we receive an error, we still have it, okay? So I'm going to have one, and then I'm going to pay, and then I'm going to enter 200. You can see that we still have that issue. We can check whether the issue originated from us. You can see we did receive 200. So we did receive the last node. So all we need to do now is to come back now again to the sessions and see what may have caused our most recent failure. The response does not start or end with country. So that is another issue I keep forgetting. So for this particular one, we need to end it. This is going to be an end. So this is going to be a con. So this is going to be an end. Yeah. Because we are essentially sending them something that we don't expect a response from them. So every time you don't expect a response, you start with end. If you expect a response, you start with con. So let's do it afresh. Okay. So do one, then pay, then 200. So we have now terminated it. Maybe you can add Kenya shillings there. Okay. So we have now terminated it. Now, what we need to do is to ensure that by the time a user receives this, we have prompted them to make a payment. And that is where now the section of adding an SDK push is going to come in. So what we're going to do, we are going to create a file called initiate SDK push.js. So it's going to be a JS file. Maybe I should first of all save that one. And then from here, all we need to do is use the Intasend API to handle the integration. So I'm going to come back to the API docs. If you go to the API docs, you can see that they have an M-Pesa SDK push for Node.js. And then what we are going to do is we are going to copy this. Once we copy it, we paste it there. So come back here, because we are using module. I'm going to change this to import Intasend from you import it from that. And then what you're going to do, because I've already added my keys in the exact names, you should do the same. Add your keys in the environment variables, and then just do process. No, you have to remove this. quotations. Sorry, this is going to be key. Process dot env dot and then process dot env dot instasend. And because this is not a test, we're going to change this to false, so that we can. Right now, I'm using my live variables, so I'm going to change this to false. Now, come back to your function. So I'm going to create an exportable function here. So I'm going to create export, and then I'm going to make it async. Export async function initiate SDK. And this, what this is going to do, it's going to accept phone, amount, and phone. And then a. So I'm just copy that and then cross it. So that is how I'm going to have it. Now, what we need to do is to replace a few values. So the first name, I'm just going to have it maybe as just Karimakos. This is just an abstraction by Intasend Murigi. And then I'm going to have the email as karimakos.murigi. You can have anything here. And then I'm going to change this website to code with Karimakos. And then the amount is now going to be the amount that the user entered from our SDK push. And then the phone number is going to be the phone that we send now from the. Then I can just change this to tutorial, or maybe YouTube tutorial. Another thing I want to change is what is responded with here. I'm going to return something. I'm just going to return, for example, status. Then I'm going to return 200. If it has been initiated, this is what is going to happen if we have initiated. And then I'm going to return status what. Maybe status code is what we should have as 200. And then I should have the status as a string of what? SDK push sent. So once we have that, I can also attach here the response. I can also attach the response there. I'm also going to do the same thing here. Because it's an error, let me just console log error there. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to return the same thing. So I'm going to return status. Status is going to say that SDK push. It's a string. So SDK push not sent. And then the status code. The status code I can attach 400 there. And then I can also add another thing called error. And then the error is going to be, because what Intasend returns as the error is a buffer. So I'll probably need error dot to string, so that this particular error can be converted to a readable value. So in case we have forgotten something, we're going to have it there. and then I can save it. Now I can come back to my server and just import import initiate SDK push. Then I'm just going to add .js here, and then initiate SDK push is what I'm going to have here. So initiate SDK push, and then I'm going to add the amount and also pass the phone number. Now I'm going to change a little bit, a few things, but maybe before then we should probably try run it and see whether it's going to run. But one of the things that I should change is, for example, changing this to only be a number, because you don't want your amount being a string. So I'm going to change this to a number. And I'm also going to do the same thing to the phone. So phone number is equals to number, and then I'm going to pass the phone number again there, so that we receive, once they are sent, we are going to receive them as actual numbers. Because if you read from this particular documentation from, for example, Intasend, you can see that they always expect this to not have the plus. Yeah, so that is going to be a very bad inconvenience if you send with a plus. But for now, let's try it and see whether we are going to receive anything. Let's test it. Okay, so 1, 2, 10. So there was an error somewhere. Let's see whether we can see it in our application. You can see that we have assignment to a constant variable. Okay. Let's check that. Line 50. So it's what we have here. So let's check. Is phone a constant? Well, I'm making my own mistakes. Yeah. Oh, okay. So we can't reassign it again. So I'm just going to change it to phone here and remove the issue. So seems that was the issue. And then I'm just going to say, and then I need to define this again. So I'm just going to call it a constant again. Just save it. So let's start a new session. So start afresh. So we are going to enter 1, 2, enter amount. We're going to put 10 bob. You can see we are now getting, you receive an SDK push. I have received it. I've received it on my phone, but I want to prevent something. Although I know it's a give and take. For example, this SDK push is going to be sent. You're going to get a response that you will receive an SDK push, whether the SDK push is sent or not. Because it does happen here that there is an issue. For example, if there was an issue with our phone, for example, how can we, for example, make it, for example, let's not change this to a phone. Let's remove that so that I can show you the issue. So let's try a new session and then see what is going to happen. So we're going to have 1, and then 2, and then I'm going to enter 10. You can see that I'm receiving that you're going to receive an SDK push. Now, I know that SDK push is not going to come. You can even see that we have received a buffer. And actually, why are we receiving a buffer and it's not going to be, it's not supposed to be a buffer? But you can see that we have received an SDK. Oh, yeah, we are receiving it from here. Here. So we should probably convert this as well to a string before logging it. So you can see that we are receiving an error, and I want to simulate it again. So we are going to try again 1, and then 2, and then 10. I've been told that I'm going to receive an SDK push, but you can see that here we are only now receiving that invalid phone must contain only digits in the phone number here, the phone number that we are receiving here, and it's all coming from here because this phone number has a plus. Yeah, so I'm going to revert that to a phone number. But before I even revert it to a phone number, let me just delete it for a moment. So what I want to do is I'm going to await on this. I'm going to await on this SDK push or SDK response. So I'm going to await on it. And as I await on it, the response that I'm going to get, depending on the response, whether it's been sent or not, this is what I should expect. Whether there is an error, if there is an error, I'm going to receive this. If there is no issue, I'm going to receive this. So that is what I'm going to target on here. So I'm going to now say if now SDK push response dot status code equals to 100. Yeah, or I can even say if it's not okay. Doesn't matter what you say. If it's okay, that's when now I'm going to send this particular response. So I'm going to move this inside this if else. I'm going to move this inside here. So that's when I'm going to be sending this particular response. Otherwise, else, I'm always going to be sending a particular response that is formatted this way. It's still an end. It's going to be, for example, it's going to be an end, and then I'm going to say, for example, there was an issue, or maybe there was a problem or something. So there was a problem sending your SDK push. And then we tell them contact support. Yeah, so this is the response that we're going to. Now let's try with now the wrong phone number and see the response that we're going to get. So I'm going to try it again, and then you're going to get 1 to the account, 2 to pay contribution, and then we're going to enter 100. So there was some other issue. Let's check what the other issue was. So SDK push is not defined. I have some issues with my definition. I should probably shift to TypeScript so that it can spot I can spot these issues before I even learn my code. Yeah. 2, and then I'm going to 100. Let's see. Again, another issue. Let's see. Status code. So we are receiving the error, but we are not awaiting on it. So there must be some other reason. So we have a wait there, and we have a sync there. Are we doing the same to the other one? We have an issue again. And if you watched the Intasend video, you remember that I forgot to return again. So this is actually my mistake. So you're going to await we have already awaited, but we are going to return the response from this callback function. Yeah, you're going to await the response from that callback function. Now, let's do it again. So you're going to do it again. I'm going to go to 1, 2. I'm going to enter 100. So we are now awaiting. There was a problem sending your SDK push. So contact support. So we are not now telling the user that the SDK push has been sent, even though it hasn't. Yeah. So we are waiting on the response of the API or the backend from our payment service, and then returning a response that is a little bit more relevant now. And now we can now correct our phone number back to a number, to an actual number. And again, I have to insist that just using the number is not the right approach, because it's the right approach for simple number corrections. But if you are having, for example, issues with a little bit more complex, it might return null, and that is not something you might want to do. So I've corrected the number. Let me see if you're going to get the other node that your SDK push has been sent. Yeah, you can see that. Let's check whether the SDK push has been sent, and then you can just click OK. Yeah, I've received the SDK push from Intasend, and that's about it. You can see that it's now a little bit easy to return a response based on what the user or the error that the user or the backend application did receive. Now, to close up, I want to talk about maybe the basic things that are not right with this or such an approach. One of the things that is not right, you cannot like loop through the entire user flow journey, or maybe if else the entire user flow journey. You need a good engine to handle the selection of nodes and the initiation of backend services or backend processes that interact now with from your USSD app now to your backend processes or backend services. Like, for example, let's say, for example, you have a service that is initiating a M-Pesa SDK push. Or, for example, let's assume that you're dealing with M-Pesa, you're dealing with another payment service, for example, for MTN. You also, for example, dealing with another service provider. All those services, you cannot handle them through an if else. So the reason why this is not sustainable, you cannot loop through or if else through the entire user flow journey. So what you need is to create a very comprehensive engine that is going to plug the next node. Yeah, it knows the next node, and if something involves a backend process, it puts that or the response of the user, for example, for validation. For example, you may want to validate is the phone number. For example, let's say that this member is paying for another member. And they have to enter that phone number. You have to validate, is that formatting of that phone number good? Yeah. And those are a lot of backend processes. So this process is just for a basic USSD flow. For you to make an advanced USSD flow, you have to make a very good comprehensive engine. And maybe I can talk about that for a moment. Let me paint that so that we can break down the processes more clearly. Now, for you to make a good backend process, one of the things that you need to before you even develop it, think about, for example, from node. For example, if we get a particular user, you have to first of all pass that input or the text that the user entered. you have to pass it to validators. And what these validators are doing is to check whether what they entered is primarily good formatting. For example, for ID numbers, we know that ID numbers should not go past 10 numbers. So if someone enters like 50 string of numbers, is that an actual ID? No. So you have to reject it from that point. If they enter a number like, for example, 0094567, for example, for Kenya, that number is not recognized. So you have to validate it. Yeah, you have to reject it, so that you don't have like a lot of processes going back to your backend when they are not right initially. And then you have to go back now. Apart from validators, you have now to think about the services. And the services here is where most work is, because you realize some nodes. For example, if, for example, I'm registering someone, that the next node is going to be defined by whether the payment was successful or not. So the services are probably going to be suggesting or returning responses that determine our next node. So there are a lot of processes that comes into developing a USSD, a comprehensive engine for that matter, that is going to be handling all this. And maybe in the next videos, I'm going to be talking about more advanced USSDs and how you can interact with them. For example, let's probably we can build a very good engine to show you like how the entire USSD flow is going to interact with the USSD service, validators, and the USSD services. Yeah, and that's about it. So thank you for watching this particular video, and I hope that you've learned something. And if you would be interested in me making more videos surrounding USSDs, do let me know in the comment section. I'm also going to have a form in the description where you can fill or you can suggest ideas or concepts that you'd want me to make videos on. Yeah, so that I know what you probably struggling with and what you'd want us to figure out together. That said, thank you for watching this video, and I hope to see you in the next one.